In this video, we're going to talk about psychometric testing. These are the tests you might use in recruitment. In another episode, we talked to you about the science behind it. This time, we're going to talk to you about the actual application. That's coming up right now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams, the host of HR Shop Talk. On the show, you get expert insight into anything HR. I encourage you to subscribe to the show or podcast to keep learning from my guests. Today, my guest is again Marina Kolesnikova. Marina did some tests for me a way long time ago, and they've impacted me ever since and given me things to think about as I've moved through my career. And my tests, as I recall, if we're going to talk about application, was somewhere between development and recruitment. Frankly, I don't actually remember. But anyways, so Marina, hello, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing, Andrea?
I'm great. And interested in this one too. So we're going to talk about how to actually use these tests. So when clients are coming to you, typically why? What are they hiring you for?
Well, the majority of the time they come to us to help them with recruitment, not with selection and hiring external candidates. That will be really 85% of assessment we've been doing for our clients. But especially recently, we have more and more requests for doing developmental assessments. Developmental assessments are different. They're similar in the process. They're similar in terms of we use a battery of tests, we use the interview, but our interview is more in depth. It's broader because we're trying really to understand a person's potential. And that's how a developmental assessment is different. We're not talking about a fit for a particular position. We try to understand where a person is now, what their potential is, what the gap, what they need to do differently or better to be able to reach their potential. Sometimes it involves exploration of their career direction, so they may not be on the right or in the best position in the right career. Sometimes we're talking about transitioning to leadership roles and what it means in terms of development, how they would transition to that position. It's a much more in-depth feedback session with an individual, and we write a longer report with developmental areas. What this person needs to develop. We coach. We don't coach in a true sense. It's not a long-term coaching, but with developmental assessment, we usually conduct a couple of sessions after the assessment. The best utilization of the report is to discuss it with several people who know person quite well, and they can really provide with more examples of more suggestions on the job or from their personal life, what this person can do, we can do differently. So more in depth, more involved, there are more connection with the individual. And as I mentioned, really recently we have more requests for doing developmental assessment. Maybe it's related to retention because, as you know much better than I do, it's one of the challenges in the HR world, how to retain people and how to identify talents earlier in their career development, not at the point where a person wants to leave the organization.
Did you answer the next question? What was the most common assessment applications in the organization?
In terms of applications, that would be selection and development. But another very common application will be when assessment is used for promotion. And it seems to be almost the same thing, selection and promotion, but in reality it's not exactly, because promotion always happens based on the current performance and the current position. But it's very hard to predict how a person will behave or succeed in the next level. And quite often it happens that people fail.
It's so true. It's a cliche. Jeepers, how many people's like your performance in your current position does not predict your performance in a future position?
But it's It's true, because I mean it's really, if you think about how can we predict, and person may not be ready or may not really have the skills.
Right.
The principles is again well-known terms. Everyone reaches Peter principles at a certain point, and it's very difficult for an individual to understand whether they've reached or not. Everyone, or most people, they want to be managers. They want to advance to executive position, but as we know, not many people have this potential. So, and when we do an assessment for promotion, this our MPI analysis actually management potential, the key word is potential here, becomes critical, because that's how we would predict what maybe the company cannot see at this level, but that it will be challenged. It will create certain challenges for an individual to go to the next level. When we can talk about the leadership pipeline, right, and moving from a, let's say, frontline manager to the next level, to the mid-level managers, becoming more strategic, dealing with changes, sometimes dealing with uncertainty, and these days it's more and more important. It's very difficult to understand whether the person will be able to do this based on their current performance as a frontline supervisor. They may be great as a frontline supervisor, but not as good as middle-level manager.
So I know, and I think you touched on something that just really resonated for me, was the Peter Principle. And okay, quickly remind us what that is.
Oh, it's a level where a person achieved in their career progression, they have skills and they succeed. But after this level, likely they will not be successful, because they do not have competency, they cannot have ability. And it's not only experience, it's really they may be lacking in certain characteristics which would not allow them to go beyond this level. And identifying this Peter Principles level, I understand it's extremely important. That's coming back to our developmental assessment. And the assessment is designed to help people to be more motivated and excited about what they do, but also to be self-aware. To be self-aware in terms of their potential limits, and self-aware how to utilize their current strengths and be successful in the position, or maybe look at lateral move if they may not have sufficient skills or abilities to go up to the next level of management, for example.
Yeah. So, well, and I think that was a great point. Even the individual, or even, their managers aren't really going to know if someone has maxed out their potential, but you can tell, can't you?
We believe with the 6.5 accuracy, we can tell. On the other hand, sometimes we can find a diamond in the rough. A person who may be, for various reasons, shy, or may not have this ability to promote themselves in the organization. But when we do an assessment, we can see how much potential this person have. And it's a matter of finding the right position, the right level, and define career development for them. That I really love this kind of assessment, because it's also beneficial not only for the individual, which usually boosts their self-confidence and maybe clarify their career direction, but also for the company. They can look differently. And it's about helping our clients with mapping up career direction of their potential future leaders, or just retaining them in place and helping them with developing.
What do you need from your clients? I mean, it just seems like you can nearly work miracles, but only with the information you have. So what do you need from clients to be successful at what you do?
From the clients, when we initiate the assessment, we really need to understand not only the job requirements, which we get from the job description, and we usually get it from HR manager. We try to understand the context organizational context, challenges of this position, future challenges, maybe potential expectations from the company, from the incumbent of this role, fit for the team, fit for the culture. So the cultural characteristics is very important. And with existing clients, we are quite up to date. We believe at least that we know those qualities. But with a new client, we spend a lot of time to understand this. We do our homework before we can start doing an assessment, because it really would add to the accuracy of the assessment if we understand this characteristics, how to define the fit for the culture. And then, as I mentioned, I described the process. Once we understand this, then we set up the tests, and then we just get it started with person.
So often, I imagine your client probably doesn't know the answer to many of those questions, just guessing. And so they're probably on a journey with you.
I was just going to follow up on this particular point, because I agree with you 100%. And that's why the last step of doing this assessment, after we generate the report, we send the report to the client, very frequently we have a discussion with the HR manager or hiring team, especially when they hire for a senior leadership position. And this discussion, it's not about how we measure or what we measure. Read this report, they know what it is about. It's a conversation. What are they looking for? Is this a good fit? And sometimes we usually, this conversation, we facilitate this discussion. And sometimes it's really members of the hiring team. They discuss it with each other. They ask the right questions, will help them make a decision. They will need to make a well-informed decision about this particular candidate, not us. Our role is to help. And we see ourselves not just the expert in psychometrics, we see ourselves as trusted advisors. We hope that we are. When the client can rely on us and ask us tough questions or challenge the assessment results. We love those situations where we may identify something which clients cannot see in the interview or a reference check. It's not visible, it's hard, it's difficult, like dark side personality. Almost never ever you will be able to identify those in the interview for obvious reasons.
Right.
So this conversation with the client, I think, makes us feel part of the selection process, as part of a team, and add value to them making a good decision.
If you have learned something, subscribe to see all the episodes and comment. Have you ever hired someone like Marina? And if so, what was that like? How did it go for you? Let us know in the comment section. So Marina, what are the signs that you're adding value to your client?
The best really signs, like the golden standard, is to conduct a predictive validation study. And what it means that we have the test results. And by the way, we have a secure testing platform when the candidate is doing the test, and we automatically collect data point. To give you an idea, we have hundreds of data points per candidate. So we have a really large database which can be used for analytics. So we correlate with the test results with actual job performance and the criterion. So the performance is usually done by superior, or there may be some objective indicators of performance. It's quite a complex statistical analysis of this correlation, and it allows us to understand the accuracy of our assessment. We can eliminate certain tests or certain scales if they're not doing a predictive job at all. So for the client, it's also important to understand what we do and how we add value. So this will be really the golden standard and how we know that we are successful. But in terms of day-to-day life, we have long-term clients. Some of our clients, like Tech Metals, we've been working for them for 25 years.
Yeah.
It tells you a lot. London Drugs, the same, 25 years. The Jim Pattison Group, for some of the companies. And this longevity of our relationship, it's not only work, it's really a relationship with the clients we established and we cherish and we develop. It's an indicator that we are successful. Clients refer us to other clients.
Yes.
I hope that also will be a very, very good indicator.
Yeah. We talked about this a fair bit on the other episode, but just let's touch on it again. You also do psychological assessments. Well, you do a variety. You've talked about promotion here, but how are the tests you might do for promotion different from development, different from recruitment?
The great question, Andrea. The test per se may be the same, but the test is a tool. It's really a tool in a design, we need to framework. We need to understand why and what we are doing for what is the purpose. So when we use the same test, for example, for doing assessment for, let's say, mid-level management position and for doing developmental assessment of a person who is in this position in the organization, but it's really utilization. It's really the outcome. The interview is different if we talk about selection and developmental assessment. And as I mentioned, report is very different. And with the selection assessment, for example, we identify strengths and weaknesses. For example, a person may not be very assertive in terms of dealing with conflict or dealing with difficult situation, and the organization and management position may detract from their success. With the developmental assessment, we want to increase the awareness of a person that they're not very assertive. If they are quite aware of the next step, what we can do.
Right.
Let's see. What is the best way for you to be an assertive? Because, just say, try to be assertive, likely nothing will happen.
It's very frustrating.
Nothing will happen overnight. So we look at other personality characteristics and try to help them understand what is the best, the most comfortable way for them to go a little bit outside of their comfort zone. Not jump, not leap. Really, it's a step-by-step process, and we write it in the report and guide them and encourage them to get feedback. So it's really the whole process as opposed to tests, which are tools.
Yeah. It does just lead me to a question, which you may know the answer to just because of your expertise, but it isn't really related to that exactly to this episode. But you were talking about incremental growth and small steps. And you see all this feedback on these, memes almost on LinkedIn about, putting yourself outside your comfort zone. Is there part of the getting out of your comfort zone that is going to create growth, and then to, some extent is just going to create too much failure? Like, is there an optimal growth spot?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And therefore, if you think about where we are now, let's say comfort zone will be just a little bit outside of it.
Yes.
Right. But we also need to understand that that's what we do with developmental assessment in particular. Be aware of strengths, your key strengths. You can always rely on going outside of your comfort zone, because those strengths come natural to you. For example, again, a person may be very bright, and they really usually known in the organization as strong technical expert, but they are reluctant to speak up, they are reluctant to take a stand, they are reluctant to persuade other people. So those are the areas for development in this a bit of outside of the comfort zone. Take a more stand in a meeting, trying to facilitate the conversation, initiate interactions with other people that you can really persuade them to your opinions. So those kind of incremental steps which may allow a person to go outside of their comfort zone, as opposed to saying, you go to the board meeting and you will make a presentation about how the company will go in 5 years. So of course this will happen. But also what's important to understand is that when we're going outside of our comfort zone, we are really gradually increasing our self-confidence. And it's important that we're having fun. It's not torture. It's not something we initially may not want to do, but as long as we start developing new skills, it becomes another motivation. And it's a constant learning, it's a constant growth. time. Failures happens, mistakes happens. So what? Would it prevent us from growing and development? Absolutely not. Because it's always a balance. It's a balance of leveraging our strengths and motivation for develop and learning from mistakes. It's, by the way, one of the questions I always ask in the interview. Tell me about your mistakes and what you learned from them. You will be fascinated to hear the answer to this question.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. I'm as you're asking the question, I'm like, how would I even answer that question myself? Anyway, so of closing thoughts, if someone wants to learn more, where should they go? When's a good time to apply this? Just whatever closing thoughts you have at this point.
We'll love educating clients. Mm-hmm. We really do. Current clients who knows us quite well, and especially new clients. So if you want to learn about us, Stefan, Fraser and Associates, it's very easy to get to our website. And we really would love talking about what we do, how we can do assessments if assessment is needed. Sometimes assessment is not needed with the organization. We help our clients develop their talents, and we are successful only if our client's successful. There is no other way for us to be successful, and that's what drives our motivation. That's what we enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. We are trusted advisors, hopefully.
Right. You know what? One question I didn't ask is even how much do these even cost? Or is it shocking, or is it going to be, is it going to be shocking either way, shockingly cheap or shockingly expensive?
It really depends. It depends on the level of assessment and level of position, because it depends on the level. It may cost from $500 for just doing an assessment for a relatively low level position to more expensive, obviously, assessment for a senior level and management. But the costs, we can, as we said, we can adapt any budget. But what we're also very concerned and very clear is that we cannot compromise on the quality of the assessment. For example, if client wants us to do assessment for senior leader, but they want to utilize assessment design for just doing basic personality for entry-level position, we cannot do that, just because it will not be really accurate and it will not be beneficial for a client. You cannot understand complex senior leadership position by using tools designed for entry level.
Thanks, Marina. As I said, I went through that test myself, but this was still fascinating. Marina and I did an episode on the science of psychometric testing, and that link is right here. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.